Hey everybody. Hey. Hi, welcome to our video. Here we go. It's a live video. Please subscribe. Yeah. Now there's so much to talk about here. We're live right now on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And we really are going to talk about a lot of different things. There's a range of things that I want to talk about. My daughter Janine also wanted to join us. Let me set happy okay. I don't know. Let's talk about a few things right now. Number one, I want to update people on what I'm doing and what's going on. And number two, we have a lot of stuff in the news. We have things happening there. The other thing I want to talk, there's been a lot of conversations recently. And we've been talking about, we've been talking, Janine Soda. I tell you what, it's funny because one of the great entertainers said, never do any shows with animals or children. They'll definitely upstage you. I think it's Bob Hope, pretty sure. And my daughter, she just loves to sing. We're live right now on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So I'm just we're no singing right now because we're trying to abide by all the rules of all the various platforms and stuff. She is absolutely so there's so much to talk about. She's super smart. She's super nice. I want to talk about, I love it. I want to talk about, first of all, I'm going to frame the show and then I'm going to turn it over to Janine. And then maybe mom can assist because I think it'll be like this the whole time. She is an absolute star. She just said, well, let's talk about this real quick. Okay. First of all, for the audience out there, I'm going to talk about updates of what's going on with me. I'm going to talk about automotive, what's going on with the economy and automotive and how I think you win there, and some interesting discussions and debates that are happening within the industry and at different executive levels. I'm also going to talk about some of the news that's going on right now. We've got this speakers race at the national level. Okay. And so first of all, Janine, let's talk about you recently. I have to just keep, all right. I have to hold on right here. You recently had, because you recently had a show. You had a dance show. How did that go? Good. Now you're in class right now. You're in class right now. You're in kindergarten. Do you like school?
I'm 5, so 5.
You're 5 years old. So what's happening? So
I'm happy.
You're happy? She is a performer. She's an absolute performer. You're easy. She's a performer. There's no doubt about it. Now, so Janine is 5 years old, and she is doing very, very well in school. I was in a gifted program when I was a child. We are looking at a program for her that is a little bit south here in Sarasota for gifted children. We'll see what happens. There's no pressure. It's a tough balance, right? What are you doing? What are you going to do? Excuse me 1 second. No. I have to sit here, Jenna. She's trying to take over the show. I have to sit here. And I'm trying to keep everything. We're live right now. And Miss Janine has a dress on. So as a good dad here, we're trying to keep everything appropriate and under control here. So one of the things that I'm looking at as a parent is, and this actually is interesting. This comes up with so many families, right? My wife has a career. She's trying to get things going there. She's a physician, a doctor from Israel. We're trying to figure out what she wants to do. My daughter here, Janine, let me rewind. So when I was in school, and I want to be careful how I phrase this. I was in the gifted program, and if you see my other, I'm technically, maybe not the technical term, although I've seen different terms out there, highly gifted. I'm for lack of a better word, I'm a super genius. Okay. And I'm not going to delve into that, but you can see my video on that where I reveal the scores and I go into all that. Well, when I was a kid, I was in a small town, really nice town. It was outside of Pittsburgh on the way to West Virginia. And I just didn't fit in. And I know we had a gifted program there. And what I mean by that is I was testing super high, like as you'd expect, right? I can't remember exactly. I'd refer you to that that video, but it was like at early ages, I was at very, very, very high levels. And I don't want to get too swerved into that because that's not the subject of this video. There's a lot of other things about this video. And so, but I remember as a child that I was bored in class, you know, all the things you hear about. I was bored in class. I had all kinds of other ideas and I just wasn't pushed enough, wasn't challenged enough. And I just feel like it's very important wherever your child is, it's so important to get that, to make sure they're in the best environment. I love Janair like so much. Like okay, I know she's the absolute best. I mean, I've gotten very, very lucky and very, very blessed as a father. And it's going to get me emotional, right? And I just want to do the best. I just want to do the best for her. And I can see like shades of me, right, in her. And of course, my wife is very, very intelligent as well. And I just want to get her in a school that's going to be the best opportunity for her. So, and I appreciate everyone hanging in with it. It's so hard to do a show with Janair, but it's fun to do a show with Janair. You like doing videos, yes? You like to talk to people, right? And so there's this funny faces. Yeah, so there's a school down in near Sarasota that is a gifted magnet school. And it's for gifted kids. And it also happens to be one of the top schools in the country, period. Right. And so we'll see what's going to happen with Janair. Again, there's no pressure. And a lot of parents out there, maybe you send your children to a religious-based school or maybe a public school. A lot of people to public schools, or maybe you send your child to private schools. Janair, that's not easy. But it's hard as a parent to try to, you want to do the best for your children, right? So that's part of what's going on with me and what I'm trying to do. You go check in with mommy real quick, see what mommy's doing, and then you come back. And so that's part of what I'm looking at of what's going on with me and what I'm looking at for where I'm trying to position my career and what I'm trying to do in the midst of this. And I'm very thankful and very blessed to work for the organization that I work for. I work for an executive, for lack of a better word, I don't know what the right, a leader of our group. I'll say it in that way. Gino Walsh, that I think, I've said it before, I've said it to his face. It's not, I think he's the smartest person in automotive that at a retail dealership level. I've said that before, and we'll be talking to him. I believe we're going to do a live show tomorrow, but we don't always agree, right? And of course he's the boss, and it makes for really interesting conversations. And I'll also say that Brett Macy, who I also worked for before, who was also with the Cavalli Auto Group before, now with Lithia, very, very intelligent, great operator. Both of those gentlemen sort of unleashed me and allowed me to do what I do. Maybe not fully, right? And that's an interesting, that gets into interesting conversations right there. But about where automotive is and where it's going, and what it takes to win right now, and what it takes to succeed. So it's so much to talk about right now. Let me try to frame it a little bit. And I can't tell you, I'm a professional broadcaster. I think I'm a national talent. But man, this is so hard to do a live show with your daughter right there. And so I'm trying to keep her from falling and everything. So I think that what I'm currently doing, I've received a promotion to be executive manager of digital media and marketing for the Cavalli Auto Group. And I appreciate that. And at the same time, I'm a finance manager and I'm doing sales and et cetera. And there's a lot going on. I'm looking at launching a digital marketing agency on my own. And so there's a lot to talk about on that. John, how are you doing all this? What about everything else? It all relates. And right now I'm trying to get it. Yes, missionary. What do we want to talk about? A dance? Dance puppy all the day? Okay, but no, there's no dancing on the chairs. There's no dancing on the chairs. There's no dancing on chairs. Can you just check in with mommy for a quick second? Just make sure she's okay. Okay, so what is going on there? So I think that the nature of automotive is changing rapidly. This economy and this market is changing rapidly. How you win and how you win going forward is also changing. So let's get to my theories of that real quick, and I'm sure we'll be joined by Miss Janaire here in a second, back and forth. But yeah, that's hard to do a show, but it's all right. So okay, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to simultaneously, obviously, provide for my family and all that. I'm trying to scale up my own business type of stuff. I'm trying to, hold on one second. Salma, can you yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm trying to, be effective in my role. And I'm also trying to solve a problem. We in the automotive business here, and I'll tell you, Janaire is just super high energy right now. And that's it. That's exactly it. Like, I was the exact same way. Now I can't profess that I'm some expert in children and whatnot. And maybe it's just that age, but I was the exact same way, just super energy, always wanting to learn and excited and all that. And that gets to it. And I think, so this, I'm trying to shove so much into this video. It's not even funny. And we'll go for as long as we want to go here. I'm not even going to try to put a time limit on it because I don't know exactly how long I'm going to go with this one. But I want to talk about parenting. We're going to talk about that. I want to talk about my current role. I want to talk about automotive. I want to talk about some of the political stuff going on out there and somehow weave it all together. The political stuff, we'll sort of do a bookend of that. I mean, most of this stuff relates in here. There's sort of the and then that's some other stuff that we'll probably touch on depending on, time dependent. So, I never thought I was going to get into the car business. Okay. I never thought. I stumbled into it and I just happened to be crazy good at it, in my opinion. And it's interesting, right? And so it's changing very rapidly. And I keep saying that, but it's just so true. I think it's been pretty much behind other industries for a long time. And I think all of a sudden now we have all this disruption. I mean, look at what's been happening, Tesla, Carvana, etc. And, but at a fundamental level, the challenges are still the same. Price, product, all, the 4 Ps, right? Promotion, placement. I think I have that roughly right. We'll double check. I'll put some links in the video description on YouTube. Also, this video, check all the description check everything and all the disclaimers on YouTube. My show in general is sponsored by Melanap and a division of Logitech, etc. There's a lot to talk about with that. So please check all the videos, disclaimers on YouTube. And I am monitoring, I think on YouTube, on YouTube, you can comment here and I can see the comment in the chat. And then on Facebook and LinkedIn, I'll pick up and respond there after the show. So my theory of what's going on, I have a lot of theories of what's going on. Let's talk about the basics. There are 3 main schools of thought, and this evolves, but it's more than that, of how you win at a retail dealership level. Well, let me back to me for a second in what I'm looking at. I've been able to make pretty good money, not crazy money, but pretty darn good money in the automotive business. And, sometimes I do better than my peers. Sometimes I do worse than my peers, in terms of all of my contacts out there in the legal world and, venture world and tech and et cetera, because in media, as I've done all kinds of different things in my life, right? As you can see by my LinkedIn, etc. But I think right now where we're at with automotive, it's provided me flexibility to move around and do different things and still make good money. But I'm intrigued right now. As much as I sometimes get frustrated with the industry, I think for various reasons, I think there's a really unique challenge right now. In addition, I have, I really like the organization that I'm with. I really want to help them win. But I'm also at a point of inflection with my own sort of life and career and everything that I'm trying to rapidly scale in many different ways. Like the Tampa Bay, Sarasota area is really, really good. In my opinion, I think we talked about Sarasota and why we want to perhaps be down there. Well, it's technically, South Sarasota, I think Osprey, why we want to be down in that area for Janier, we'll see, but that's kind of been always the general plan, strategy, mission statement, whatever you want to call it. And I also, of course, I'm also helping out Jerry Raymond Automotive with what he's doing. And so I don't have all the answers, but I think I can ask some of the interesting questions. Right now, we're in a tough spot with the automotive business. There's all this disruption. Everyone's going EV. I was thinking about this the other day and I actually talked to a customer about this, and they kind of agreed. What is sort of the killer application, if you will, and that's from that's software parlance, the killer app and stuff, tech talk, if you will. But basically, let me rephrase that. What would be the ultimate product right now, today? Would it be full electric? I don't know about that. I'm not so sure. And you're seeing different things that have had other shows about that, where we talked about what the CEO of Toyota is saying about having a mix of fuel types. We're seeing other people saying they're going full electric. We're seeing different business models out there, whether it's Carvana, Kavak. We're seeing Vroom before that. There's so many different things happening right now. We're seeing Polestar. We're seeing Ford, with their changing evolution with what's going on with the dealer, with the dealership franchise dealers. There's so many things happening out there, and there's a lot of risk. Like, who's going to win? Why? To me, it gets complex, but you break it down to simple. So I think, I don't know what to say first. Well, I'll just go with it. I think that the ultimate application today, right now, and again, I say that because I think things are constantly changing, right? The landscape is constantly changing. There is this major push towards electrification and EVs. But I think right now, if you had a vehicle, just think for a second, what would the perfect vehicle be to you? And we also have to think of what do cars do? We get caught up in the brands, and that's all interesting, and 0 to 60 times and everything. But what is a vehicle do? A vehicle at the base, functionality is just transportation. And you want it to be safe, and you want to be connected. You want to be able to have additional value with that transportation, but it's just transportation, right? And there's a cost to it, and there's all these other things that that go into that. But it's transportation. So then you have to ask yourself, well, how do consumers use it? How much do you travel? How much does the average consumer travel per day? How long do they take medium trips, longer trips? Who's traveling with them? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you think about right now today with the network of charging stations and fuel prices and that whole mix of everything, I would submit, I would think about this. Wouldn't it be interesting, or how interesting and to consumers would it be if and if you're watching this video, you're gonna have to see different parts or hang along with it, because there's just I didn't really organize, my brain's all over the place, but I promise it will all, well, hopefully, I'm not going to make any guarantees, but the goal is to bring it all together, and I think it all does relate, and I think we're going to bring up some very interesting topics here. Okay, so what about a hybrid? What if you had a hybrid right now, a plug-in hybrid that could go 100 miles on full electric, and then had a 500-mile total range between gas and electric, and had a recharge time of, let's say, 6 hours or less with a regular plug, you know, a 120, or maybe at most the 240. I hope I'm getting that right. I think I am. I don't know. It's late. Outlet. How awesome would that be? And it cost under, and it was safe, and it cost under $35,000. How cool of a product would that be with the connectivity and et cetera like that? And so you think about that. What do people really want? They really want transportation that is cost effective, that is safe, where they have freedom of traveling. They're not worried about, you know, the range anxiety or all that, you know, stuff. They don't have to worry about the full build out charging station infrastructure. Hey, it'll work, you know, on a day-to-day basis around their metro area from work to home and all those things. You can use it probably multiple days for, you know, the shorter trips without having to recharge. The recharge time is really fast. You can take those longer trips. You still have fuel efficiency. I mean, that's really getting at what consumers want, right? Think about that. I'd love to take your comments on that, right? Everyone's like this rush to full electric, but then we've seen things about, hey, what about it? How do they operate in the cold? Hey, what about the charging stations? Hey, you know, all these different things. How long does it take to recharge? There's so many things that go on with that. So if you had sort of the best of both worlds, if you will, at a great price point that is safe, that is affordable, that kind of gets to what a lot of consumers would want, I would think. So let's pause on this, because we're talking about the strength of the product, right? And how important that is, because at the end of the day, it's really, the product is this center stage crucial part of this. We'll come back to that. So we're talking about retail automotive, right? And you can apply this to any business. How do you analyze your business? What is going on there at a tactical level, but what's the larger strategy and what's the larger paradigm of the entire industry? What are the trends or mega trends? Where's the industry going? How do you fit in within that? How do you compete there? What are your competitors doing? How do you separate yourself from them? How do you add value to the consumer? What is value to the consumer? These are all strong questions and debates. So when I talk to, well, I'll get that in a second. There's three main philosophies or approaches, and there's blends of them within the automotive world. And again, I'm sure that's evolving as well. One is the STAR system, right? We have the absolute best team. You know, if on the sales floor, I have 20 to 30 car professionals. I have the best managers. I have and just an elite team. I like that philosophy because I think talent is talent and the team is the most important thing. I like that philosophy. The second approach, and again, it's always a blend, right? It's never just one thing. The second approach is, hey, we have the best process. We have and we have consistency. Like if you go to, a lot of people have said, hey, if you go to McDonald's here or anywhere across the country, you have the same kind of similar experience, if not the same experience, and you have the same food and you know what to expect. And there's a certain time that it takes to make the food, a certain time to get through, to get your order or whatever, all of it. Right. So a process for consistency, if you will, a process for, and that's important and that's very powerful. But I made the analogy. Well, I'll get to that in a second. I made the analogy today, and one of my managers was like, "Wow, that's amazing." Something like that's amazing when you put it that way. I never thought about that. It's a great analogy, and we'll get to that in a second. I'll get back to that in a second. The third major thing is brand. So if you go to, there's I won't even name the name, but there's a dealership group, a bigger dealership group, and if you go to their website, you can't even see like general manager or anything like that. It's all about the brand, right? And that brand stands for something. And we see brands, and brands are very powerful, right? I mean, whether it's Disney or Nike, or there's so many brands that are globally powerful, and a brand's a very big thing. But then how do you build that brand, right? These other things build that brand: marketing, advertising, process. There's all these other experiences, all these other things that build the brand. You don't start with a brand, you build the brand. Once you have that brand, then that brand's very powerful. But the thing is with the brand is then you're not talking as much, if at all, about your people. And business really comes down to people. So like again, I made this analogy the last time, like if you go to Disney, like I don't go to Disney World because of this cast member or something like that. I go to Disney World because of the brand. I know I have an idea, a feeling of what I'm going to get with that experience. And there's obviously process. There's all of it, right? And there's, talented cast members. And there's, of course, there's all of it. But where are you leaning hardest to? I don't want to I can't get too deep into any of these conversations because there's so much to cover. And I see I'm already close to 30 minutes. There's so many other things I want to talk about. I haven't even talked about what I'm doing right now. So I'm doing the best I can. There's so much to talk about. That's what's the topic of this, right? And so in that conversation, what I see so often in the automotive world is, hey, if you're just motivated, if you make 1,000 phone calls, or if you take this many ups, I mean, to some degree, there is a numbers game, right? We understand that, but it's almost like you just work harder, and that's every sales job. That's so many different companies. Are we working harder? Or are we working smarter? Do we understand the playing field that we're on? Do we understand the game that we're playing? Or are we just doing, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? And in every business, you can always execute better. You can always, approach and the fundamentals and get back to basics and all that. That's always a good thing. That's never not a good thing, right? But you still, I can go outside and learn how to dig a ditch the best way and whatever. And I don't know that it's going to do much for what I'm trying to do in my career, right? Or add value to my customers, but I'm doing it perfectly. Okay. So I made the analogy of, to one of my managers today. I said, look, you can have the best process. And I'm not saying I gotta be careful what I say here, but I like to, it's not, when I talk about things, it's not so much that I'm criticizing anything or doubting anything. I'm thinking about things. Like, I want to make sure I've got the best mousetrap. I want to make sure I've got the best approach. I want to make sure I'm thinking critically about things and about how I'm doing stuff. And sometimes I have to reevaluate things, and people can tell me things, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe you're right. Or maybe I have to tune this or adjust this or let's make no mistake. This is a very challenging time in automotive. There were some of the best investors that put big money in some of these companies now, and some of these names, some of these publicly traded names that are now like, not where they were. And you can insert all kinds. I'm not giving any financial advice. I'm not making any claims. Everything you do is your own risk, etc. So it's not like this is easy analysis. It's not like this is something that's super easy to figure out by any stretch. But one of the things I said is, look, if you have the best process, because it's just, hey, it's a customer experience, just add value, if you do anything perfectly, if you get them out of here within 5 minutes, great. If I go to how many people have been to a Ruth's Chris Steakhouse and Eddie V's, what else? Morton's, insert the name here. How about this? How about just a cheesecake factory? A cheesecake factory. Have you ever been in a cheesecake factory? Raise your hand if you've ever been in a cheesecake factory. Now, my family loves a cheesecake factory, right? On any given weekend, if I'm at a popular destination, do you know what the wait is for a cheesecake factory? I mean, we've talked about Disney World. You know what the wait is for a Disney World line on a popular ride? At a cheesecake factory, you might have an hour wait. Why do you think they give you those things? They give you these things, and then you take them with you, because they're going to, as you're in the mall or wherever you're at, they're going to buzz you when it's your turn because people might wait there. Okay. So people are willing to wait for that. Why? Because the product and the overall experience is at a high level, in my opinion. People will wait. What's that process like? What's that customer experience like? How about people waiting outside in tents or whatever for the next, PlayStation or Xbox or console or whatever it was? Back in my day when I was a kid, it was a concert. Hey, so-and-so, this band is this best band, I'm going to wait for them. Countervail that, Cheesecake Factory, think about that with McDonald's. How long am I going to wait in a McDonald's line? Best process. Let's say they can get me out in 5 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it is. Great. Okay. So, how much am I going to pay for McDonald's versus how much am I going to pay for Cheesecake Factory? How much am I going to pay for McDonald's? How much am I going to pay for Eddie V's? So is it process or is it product? Of course, it's both, right? What adds value to the consumer? You have to think like a consumer. And a lot of times we say, we're all consumers, but people miss the forest within the trees, or the trees within the forest. I'm getting the analogy. I'm getting the saying wrong, but you understand what I'm saying. I think it is the forest in the trees all the time. All the time. You just get so lost, and industries and leaders they just speak to each other, and they almost it's like an echo chamber without thinking, sometimes, in my opinion, about what the problem really is. How were things changing when there was just one vehicle out there, or very limited manufacturers? It was a different problem. Now that there's so many different choices, there's not just different choices. There's choices of fuel types. There's choices of form factors. Do I want a truck? Do I want an SUV? Do I want a crossover? Do I want a car? There's so many different things that are changing. Why do you think Ferrari's come out with an SUV? I remember Ferrari, we're never going to come out with turbo engine. They came out with the turbo engine. This is my recollection. This is my opinion. I'm not alleging anything. We're never going to do electric. Here comes electric cars. SUVs. Here comes why? Because the cheese has moved, right? The goals, the playing field has changed. The playing field right now is changing. You have to recognize that if you're a leader in automotive or in a lot of businesses. The playing field is changing. So that's the longer term thing, medium term thing, shorter term thing. SARS expectations are going down. Don't believe me? Look at Cox Automotive. Look at that. And I'll put a link in here in the video description on YouTube. I might get to it a little bit later as I'm busy. Obviously, I got to work tomorrow on 2 different things. So if you're trying to be one of a top, so we've succeeded to be one of the top stores in the country for Alfa Romeo. Super proud of that, right? And the Cavalli family bought the Cavalli Auto Group, bought the dealership in late June, and we've done really, really well, and that's great. I can't get too into it. We'll see. We'll talk maybe more with Gino Walsh in the morning, and we'll see how far he wants to get in himself, and I'll roll with that and everything. Although he did say I can talk about this, and so that's great. And in general, and so think about that. Think about that problem, and I love that forward-leaning stance for excellence, right? We're trying to be an elite store in a market that's going down, an overall market. Think of that challenge. And then for me personally, okay, I'm selling, I'm an F&I manager, and I'm now the executive manager for digital media and marketing for the entire group. There's a lot of things going on there, but there's a reason for that, right? In my opinion. So I think you have to do all these things. So that comes back to this. What is your theory to win? What is your theory to win? And is it supported by data or something? Now, some of this is a science and some of this is an art. I was explaining this it's funny as I did a video that I've been talking to people, and I don't want to pat myself on the back too much, but it's I had a vision. I'm an entrepreneur, and I've always been sort of a futurist, and I've been an entrepreneur pretty much most of my life, honestly, since I was a little kid, right? and cutting lawns, putting ads in the paper, doing all kinds of different things, right? Handy person. I mean, just all kinds of different things. And I've also been very, very smart about business models, super genius. I can see things in the future. Not perfect, not everything. Obviously, I can't pick lottery. No, I'm really. I mean, anyway. I don't have it all figured out, but I'm very, very gifted in that respect. Like I can see things. But being an entrepreneur, you have to understand how to make something out of nothing, if that makes sense. You have to understand where the market might be. Where if you did this. That would be really cool, right? So anyway, I don't want to belabor the point. There's so much to talk about, but basically I'm like, hey, I think we should do this. I think we should do a podcast. I think we can do, and I have a number of radio stations that want me in this area that want me to do. I might talk about that here in a second too. They want me to do a show. I put something up on LinkedIn. Hey, do you think radio works for automotive? I have a couple offers, and I guess technically 3, but I don't know, 2 or 3. It depends on how you want to look at it. But in any event, to basically, because of my talent level, in my opinion, that they're going. One offer would be to be able to do a daily show in drive time in a top 20 market in the country, talking about pretty much whatever I want to talk about. This is all my personal opinion. Obviously, doing the shows that are going to work. That's got to be a show. It's got to stand alone. It's not like an hour or 2 hour long ad or anything like that. It's a show with ads, right? And then I would have a certain, I can't get too into it yet, but I mean, I would have a lot of freedom to run the show pretty much the way I want to run the show, if not totally. Why not do that and simulcast a podcast and all these types of things? And that's an ongoing discussion. We can come back to that. I want to table that for a second. And so I'm like, hey, I think this podcast is great. We don't want to pay for a podcast. What? Why? I'm a professional. Do you understand how powerful that would be? Would you pay to go on Joe Rogan's show? Yeah, but you're not Joe Rogan. Okay, well, Joe Rogan wasn't Joe Rogan until he was Joe Rogan. Like, you have to build it. You don't know how powerful it is. So it's weird because on the one hand, we'll say, hey, we know digital dealer. Digital is everything. And yet you don't want to lean into and invest in digital. People talk about they're so cutting edge and they want to be the future, and yet they're holding on to the past. You have to make the investment. Why? Because it goes back to what? Customer acquisition. So there's so much I'm talking about here. And I should be charging for this. Like, this is like serious analysis right here. If someone actually watches this, they're going to learn so much, in my opinion. What is the problem? What are you trying to, okay, well, one thing at a time. Think about this. And I don't want to lay too much of the secret sauce out, but I'll just say this. I knew that with what I have and my talent level and my vision, that I could do some dramatic things, I thought, or some cool things. Once I did the show today, the live show, and we showed the Maserati Calais and everything like that, I mean, from people at work, corporate leadership, other leaders out there in automotive business world, my own wife. Oh my gosh, that was so, they loved it. People were going crazy. That was the best thing. That was so cool. That was amazing. No one's doing that, whatever. It's like, you did this and that, and it was 12 minutes. Yeah. What have I been telling you for 6 months? For 6 months. What do you think John D. Villarreal Digital Ventures was all about? This is it. I'm doing it. What do you think there's so many, it's like, it all comes back around. What did I say? What was that all about? Super Genius Academy is going to, we'll be working on that too, to teach people about these things and how to do all kinds of other things. It all relates. There's all been a plan. That's why when I talk to people, when I negotiate things in my work and stuff like that, it's not about for me, an ego, a flex, this and that, whatever. It's because I have a plan, a strategy, a place I'm going. That's what you need to do in your life, in your organization, in my opinion, not giving you any advice. but there is a well thought out plan. Doesn't mean you always get there, right? I mean, like Mike Tyson famously said, everyone's got a plan to get punched in the face. And, you know, life has a way of, and work has a way of punching you in the, you know, metaphorically, right? You know, in other words, things are great in theory. In practice, then things change, right? And so, but you still have to have, if you don't have a, you know, fail to plan to fail, right? Okay. So people couldn't understand how powerful and how awesome that was, or could be. And that was nothing. That's like, if I was at a level 1 before, that's maybe like a level 2. I could go to level 10, right? Or more, you know? And so that shit, but it was powerful. And until I did it, they couldn't see it. That's what I'm talking about being an entrepreneur. That's what I'm talking about being a visionary. Until I did it, they couldn't see it and couldn't understand how impactful that could be for a customer. So think about this. You've never seen the Grecale. You've never driven the Grecale. You've heard about it. You thought about it. You don't know. You're a dealer right now. How do you explain that? Build value in your team, build value in your dealership, show what inventory you've got on the ground right now. And I did it all in 12 minutes. And I did it with no preparation, no notes, immediately. Look at that video. If you're an automotive leader, if you're someone in tech, think of how powerful that video is right then. Think of the talent level. I've been doing professional media for over 20 years. Of course you have to pay, I mean, on and off, not, you know, of course you have to pay for that. That's a different thing. That's knowing your worth. And I get, you know, and I talked about that before, and I did a video on that. I don't want to blend too many things. I'm just laying things on the table of how to think about what you're doing. But forget about, it's not about me personally. I handle my own stuff. It's about, how do you think about this? Where are you putting your money? Where are you putting your time? Where are you putting your investment? Where are you putting your resources? Okay. My wife's moving the set, right? And if you're not looking at these things and thinking about them, you are missing it. You can get, in automotive particularly, we get so stuck on the treadmill. Numbers. I gotta make 50 calls, 100 calls. This and that. People don't stop and think and look and just having, you know, it's like that movie of Jean-Claude Van Damme way back in the day. I'm gonna date myself. Bloodsport. You know, he was doing the fighting thing there. He's getting beat, and he just had to stop and focus to get clarity and peace of mind, and then was able to win. You have to be able to get yourself some space to think strategically. If you're just so caught up in tactics, you don't know what you're doing. So, but by doing something different, marketing, so there's a couple different things. If you look at automotive, I think that particularly now when you have there's research that says out there, I believe, I don't have time to track it down, I'll be honest with you. So this is my personal opinion, recollection. If I can find it fast over the weekend, maybe I'll put it in. I'm not going to commit to putting it in because I have just too much to do right now. That if you're not selling a top 3 product, it's basically hard to be successful in sales. There's so much product right now in automotive space. I mean, you've got electric, you've got Lucid, Rimac, you've got the Rivian, you've got Tesla, you've got the regular manufacturers coming online. You've got Geely coming over here. You've got so many things going on. There's a lot of choices out there. Someone made this analogy too. I won't name the name, that wants me to do the radio show. So, but think about this. If I could do that I did with the Grecale, and now I'm also on the radio in this market. Wow. and it's my show. Think of the value that I'm building right there. How insane is that? And I'm doing that every day. How insane is that? That could be insane. But then some people, I see some general managers said, yes, radio works. And some other people that say, no, it doesn't work. And some people some of the people that said no. And so it's an interesting conversation, right? Where do you find? So that goes to this. When you're looking at these things, are you asking yourself, so, okay, I want to say 2 different things at once, and I don't know where to start, so I'll just start somewhere. in order to win, do you have, and every brand is different, and every market is different, every store is different, but we still are playing the same game. And if you will, and within automotive, we're still dealing with market conditions and all that. And so macro levels, macro factors, if you will. But specifically, are you, well, okay, I'll say this before I forget it. And I'll come right back to this. Stay with me. He's like, John, do you have an Android or do you have an Apple? I've got an Android. Cool. I have an Apple. Think about if you were selling Nokias today or Blackberries. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly it. Think about that, right? So you've got this like Tesla, Toyota, you've got, manufacturers that just sell tons of cars. And a lot of times there's more, to some degree, there's some mitigation of this because there's maybe a lot more Toyota stores out there than there are like, Bugatti stores, of course, those are maybe some extremes. But it makes the point of how powerful the product is, right? BlackBerry used to be a huge thing way long ago. Now it's not, doesn't sell nearly what Apple or Android, or a Samsung does, right? In terms of phones, how powerful the product is. That is very hard to fight against. If you have it on your side, you've got a lot of wind at your back. If you don't have it on your side, that is a tough deal. Particularly when you have a crowded marketplace and you have significant differential in products delivering customer value in terms of the total value delivered to the customer for a given price point. So then you have to ask yourself, within each dealership, within each company, do you have a product issue? Do you have a process issue, an execution issue, customer experience issue? Do you have a marketing, customer awareness, customer acquisition issue? Maybe you have the best product, right? Back in the day, like we've all seen this. You could have the best product that nobody knows about. Nobody's going to buy that, So in my opinion, one of my theories is Alfa Romeo, like it's a pretty cool car, actually, really cool car. It has some strengths, has some weaknesses, but what's the brand awareness level here in the United States right now? I don't think it's that great. They've reintroduced themselves in the United States. If I've seen some like what happens if Saab came back and started making automotives or Peugeot over here, right? I mean, so you have to ask yourself, what is the challenge? What is really, or when a company, a brand that may be a huge brand rebrands themselves. When Lexus was trying to sort of, refresh the brand and change that up. Mercedes, when you try to go from here down to here, we're trying to go more mass market now. There's different challenges. So to what extent, being honest with yourself and doing the analysis, it's so easy to get caught in the micro. It's so easy to get caught in the tactics, like and get into what I call car math. And I hate car math. Some car math, there's always something, there's some, there could be sometimes something tangentially related to it, but I think car math is okay. If we have 10 salespeople, if every salesperson sells 10 cars, if you want to sell 100 cars, you need 10 salespeople. Okay, well, what happens if you only have 10 cars, right? What happens if you can only sell one car, and this is per month, right? What happens if you can only sell one car per day, right? So that math doesn't work. You need to look at all this stuff and do real analysis. How are you getting your numbers? How are you basing that? What data is on? Are you looking at the whole system? Are you looking at operations? How does that make sense? And this is where, my, law degree and master communication and MBA and all this experience as a venture capitalist and entrepreneur and consultant, it all comes to bear, right? Because you don't have hardly any of that, let alone all of that, if any of that at a dealership level, pretty much anywhere. You have to start getting into the, corporates, the bigger, the public. So, it's funny because the car world's its own world, but then when you start talking about these corporate companies, all of a sudden at the higher levels, you start seeing a lot of degrees, stacked up there in the C-suite. And that doesn't mean degrees are everything or anything like that, because I think that like I was saying to someone, you can have all this technology and vending machines and everything, but it's still a car deal. So I think you have to understand both, right? You have to understand both. And I've said that before. I have a lot of different skills, communications and branding and PR and marketing and sales and all these things. But if you don't, they all work together, but you have to understand how those work together. And I was saying that it's very hard to find someone that can sell and market at the same time. And the marketers just like to market. They don't want to sell, and et cetera. And oftentimes sales, if you're super strong in sales, will pay more than marketing. So then you have that thing going on, but you need all of it, right? And so you have to ask yourself predominantly, or top 1, 2, 3, what is the challenge for your business? What is the challenge for your brand? And I think that those are hard questions, and those are rapidly evolving questions in the automotive space. Do customers right now want full EVs? Do you have that? Do you have SUVs? Do you have a full lineup? Is high horsepower the thing? Do I care? I was having this conversation. If I go full EV, do I care that I have a luxury sports brand on that full EV, or do I care what the range is? I think range is like pretty much the number one thing, or very, very high up there in terms of what customers want out of an EV. So if Aston Martin has an EV, do I care that it's an Aston Martin? Am I willing to pay 2, 3, 4 times as much as that as I would a Kia, Nissan, or something else? If they do basically the same thing. If the Nissan has farther range, why wouldn't I get that? If the Tesla has farther range, why wouldn't I get that? If the Tesla recharges faster, why wouldn't I get that? What do I care? If the specs are the same, if it's 0 to 60, all that type of stuff, racing heritage, okay, did that carry over to the EV? Am I racing in an EV? Or do I want the thing to like drive nice and be quiet and be connected and self-driving and all those types of things? Well, you're in a different world now. You have to recognize that. So thinking that what my brand meant, let me put it another way, what my value proposition to the consumer as Aston Martin or Ferrari or Bugatti in the internal combustion world is a different value proposition, probably, potentially, in the electric world. It's a totally different value proposition. If you do not have the product, you have a problem, massive problem. Are you playing a game you can win? If you're not, how do you change the game? Here are some ways to potentially change the game. So now we're dealing with the market where the market's going down. I'll give you my theory of the game right now of what I'm dealing with without getting too in it. We'll see what Gino talks about tomorrow how we talk about it. I think that a lot of people don't know about Alfa Romeo at all. Maserati, it definitely has a name out there, but I think that also has a brand awareness problem in this respect. The Grecale just launched. So many people don't understand where that slots into, what the price point of the Grecale is, and relatively that instead of getting an Audi, hey, I can get a Maserati Grecale, etc., or Mercedes, or insert here. And how many of those vehicles do those other brands sell? Strengths and weaknesses of each one. Different value propositions of each one. But now all of a sudden, like, you have to understand what your problem is. You have to understand. So do I try to gain market share? I think you try to gain market share. When the market's going down, I think you try to gain market share. So I look at this and I analyze it, strategize, and I'm like, okay, so part of my job is how to message that and how to reach people. I think predominantly if you have an elite team, if your team, of course, train them and process and get everything better and more efficient, no question. But I think if you have 100 total opportunities, 200 if you want to sell 100 cars, there's certain percentages. You can't pretend to get like dramatically away from national averages and still be successful, right? If let's say national average closing percentages are 25%, if you have 100 total. If you want to sell 100 cars and you only have 100 opportunities, that's math's not going to work. You're not going to close 100% of the people. So you need more opportunities. So now you've got a customer acquisition problem. So what is it? Do you have a messaging issue, a customer acquisition issue? Do you have a process issue? Do you have a talent issue? There's always a mix, but you have to understand where you're leaning towards, where you need to put the emphasis on. And you have to do that work. If you get caught in there, especially right now in January, this is the time for leaders to step back and say, okay, what is my game plan here? Or reevaluate. You may have had a game plan. You may need to rip it up and change it up. You see that in sports all the time. I mean, famous coach Bill Belichick, the halftime adjustments. You need to make an adjustment. You need to make an adjustment about what scheme I need to play with here, and how I need to approach things. I think for what we're dealing with, we have a customer acquisition problem. We have a messaging problem. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong. How about this opportunity? Let's flip it around. An opportunity. If we get customers, I think we have a talented team. How do I know that? We've proven that. We're one of the top in the country. So there's clearly a lot of something is working within the world of Alfa Romeo Maserati. If the whole market's going down, then okay, think about this. There's a couple of levels we can look at this at. You're never going to get 100% of the market, but if I'm the coolest place to buy within a 50, 100, whatever mile radius, if I'm the coolest place to buy an Alfa Romeo Maserati within Sarasota, Tampa Bay region, that right there can win me a lot. Now, if I build value with my customers, and I have ideas how that, I can't lay it all right here. I can't tell. I'm in the game. I can't tell all the secrets. I mean, I've given this right here. This show. If people watch this show, this is a valuable show, in my opinion. Now all of a sudden you have fans. You don't have customers. You have fans. You have partners. I think I've got a way to add value to my customers beyond selling them a car. How about that? Or an SUV. You saw what I did today. That's just the start. That's not the fin. That's the start. But you also have, that's part of what I like, Gino Walsh and the Cavalli group. You have to have leadership brave enough to take chances and try different things while we're all still running on the treadmill. Because if you're the same, then you're the same. You don't. I saw this, and I can't remember who to cite for this, and I apologize. You don't necessarily. I think you need to be better, but you don't always need to be better. You need to be different. But I think you need to be different, and you need to be better. And you have to understand what value is. What are your consumers trying to do? And it can change. And think about the power, even when you're doing so many things right. You're changing. Think about the power of a brand. And the perception and messaging and constant communication. You want to always be in touch with your client. We always know you got to call the customer, right? You got to call the customer. What if we are in touch with the customer constantly without blowing up their phone? What if there's a dialogue? What if there's constant outreach? People, I mean, these are like, to me, this is simple. But doing it great always takes a lot of work. And so I was thinking about this the other day. Think about the difference in brand perception. And I'm not saying it's right, wrong. I'm not making any commentary, but think of the difference in brand perception between Tesla 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, and right now. Dramatic. 5 years ago, people were like, oh, they're going to, or whatever. Several years ago, I heard people in the automotive business that Tesla's going to go out of business. They can't deliver before the Model 3 was delivered. They're not going to do it. A year or two ago, unbeatable, world beater. Elon Musk is a genius. He's the best. EV's taking, Tesla's taking over everything. Now, it's interesting, right? That just shows you same company, same process. But the perception, the messaging, things have shifted, right? So the power of communication, the power of branding, the power of marketing, super, super important. Product, super, super important. Understanding who your customer is, how to reach them, how to communicate with them, how to add value to them. What is value? Is value, and it's always a mix. Is it, how much is product? How much is price? How much is process? How much is time? What is it? What is it? How do they want to spend the time with you? What is their buying? What kind of buying experience do they want to have? Some people want you to show them everything. Some people don't, just want you to just want to get out of there, and go and go to dinner, go home, whatever it is. There is no, you have to have systems in place, but there's no, one size fits all, because you have different customers with different approaches. So I think that, people will cut back on marketing and advertising when times get tough. I think that's when you have to go stronger into it. I think that's where opportunities are made. I think that's when empires can be made, if you will. And that's when you grab market share. That's when you have those communications. That's when you get closer to your customers, not farther away. You have to figure out how to do that. I don't want to lay it all out here. So to me, and some of that, and then we can spin on some other things, and it's getting late, so I probably have to wind it down, but there's so much to talk about. As we said, we didn't get to all of it. We tried, but we got to a lot of it. If you've been with me for this hour, or you are seeing this in replay, maybe you understand why I'm doing all the things that I'm doing. If I believe that I'm one of the best, if not the best, at sales, why wouldn't I do that? And then I'm also an F&I manager, and why wouldn't I do that? And if particularly, for personally, if that pays well and all that, that's another thing I have to look at as well. But then also I've laid out why there is a need for in-house capability on the marketing, communication, digital media, all that, type of side, because it's critical. I would refer you to the videos that I've done and the live shows, and how impactful that can be. And think about the show we did today with the Gucali, and think about throwing that on a mailing list and getting that out to your customers, maybe that are in, 3-year-old, Levante Maseratis or Alfa Romeo Stelvios, and they want to step up into a Maserati or something like that. Or, there's so many different opportunities there. Or the Conquest customer. What if we go and reach out and do something with people that are in Audi Q5s or Mercedes GLC? There's so much that we can do with that. But if you do nothing, or you call the same people 1,000 times. So it's, again, I'm not saying I have it all figured out, but this is the conversations, right? I think in this time you have to walk and chew gum. You have to do all of it. You have to do all of it. I don't think you put your foot off the pedal. I think you have to, do all of it full blast, intelligently, obviously, and you look for ROI, but you have to ask what is your goal? What is your ROI? Not everything. The problem is with a lot of automotive world, they want everything to, immediately lead to a sale. That's advertising, which is fine. But, number one, not everything's trackable. Number two, there's advertising, there's marketing, there's merchandising, there's branding, there's communication. You need all of it. And different things will sort of hit the funnel at different levels, and different things have different flywheel effects. Advertising has a direct effect. Branding has a flywheel effect, right? Branding takes longer to get going. There's all kinds of different things here. I don't want to get too deep into the theory. And so I think it was like, I was always doing some things for the group, and I will always try to help out the Cavalli Auto Group, and I really, appreciate the family, and they're great, and they've been great to me, and they've allowed me, and Gino and Brad and leadership has allowed me to do different things and experiment and sort of be me, and have been brave enough and smart enough, in my opinion, to bring in a different level of talent, and allow me to be at that sort of, no matter what level I am in the organization, still operate sort of, if you will, in my opinion, at that senior level, and understanding that I'm bringing a lot of experience and degrees and talent and everything into the mix. And you need to listen to that. as I've always said, if you're going to hire John Villarreal, let John Villarreal be John Villarreal. If you try to put me or forget about me and just use me, anyone, if you've got talent and you try to put them in your box, then they're going to be limited to that box, and you're not getting the talent. You might as well just get an average talent or just a special into that thing. You're not getting what you're paying for. Steve Jobs said that, like, and I hire people smarter than me and let them do what they do, or something like that, right? The FedEx model. Like, you have to just, you don't like. Steve Jobs said, you don't manage, top people. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have leadership, and that doesn't mean you don't have direction. That doesn't mean you don't have training. That doesn't mean you don't have processes. I mean, of course, all of that. But you have to, I believe, you have to constantly innovate. You have to constantly push boundaries. You have to constantly, reinvent. Always iterate different things. And so, my job now is to do my job on a day-to-day basis stuff, but also to take this and success, if you will, and expand it across the group. I've already done stuff. I've been doing stuff from the beginning for the group, whether we're doing the release, and obviously this is part of, Alfa Romeo Maserati, SAP is definitely part of the Cavalli Auto group. But I think, and then that goes back to, John D. Vilo Digital Ventures, right? Which is to say that look at how many, non-Fortune 500 companies, do not have the ad agencies, don't have the budgets, aren't doing the content. How many companies need this? The answer is just tons. To be able to do that to have an elite level of service, product, whatever you want to call it, that is accessible to the small and medium-sized enterprise, the SME market is huge opportunity there. So there's a lot of things that I'm looking at and people I want to help. And I think that goes back to, the tech world and venture and scaling, and how do you scale, and, how do you do things that are extraordinary? I'm always looking to win at the top level. And I'm always looking to be around other people that are great. And I'm always looking to try to, reinvent stuff and be on the cutting edge and leading edge and just be extremely innovative. That's what I love. I love that stuff. And so you have to just think about that. Now, all that being said, use football analogies, there's still blocking and tackling. And there's still the idea that, hey, if there's a customer on the, in the dealership, I'm probably I believe that I'm the best person to make a sale. Right. And so you have to balance it all out. You have to, always allocate, time and resources and all that. But I think that, there's so many dealerships that are doing things the same way, that just see things one way. You have the salespeople here, then the finance manager and the sales manager, there is a lack of creativity and inventiveness. And I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to, you can take it either way. Is the glass half empty? Is the glass half full? Instead of looking at this as a critique, think about walk into your business and dealership or wherever with fresh eyes. Think of the massive opportunity that you have. You're not limited to playing the game the way you've always played the game. You can change the rules if you choose to. I have chosen to change the rules. You know what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm talking about? You have to, if you realistically are looking at a down market, a challenging market, if different products out, the competitive products out there, whatever, I mean, the great resignation, it's hard to get talent, all these different things. If on paper, it looks like you might take an L, or this could be very, very hard, or it's tough to win. You might think about, how do you change the game? How do you get yourself a strategic advantage? Sun Tzu, Art of War. How do you fight the fight that you want to fight? How do you get yourself competitive advantages, strategic advantages, tactical advantages in business, in life? which is just another way of saying, or somewhat analogous in my, of how do you put yourself in a position to add the most value? How do you get the most out of what you're doing? So that's why there's so much to talk about, because, I look for myself as like, okay, how do I get the most out of my abilities? How do I leverage myself, make the most money for my family, but also impact the most businesses out there, impact the organization the most, be as effective as I can be for everybody. A lot of what I do, honestly, like, it's not even like, it's super helpful to the organization more than it is for me personally. Often, right? I mean, if I had a showroom full of customers, all I should do is sell all day, right? On the other hand, if there's a lack of customers in the showroom, then I need to help bring customers in the showroom, or tell the story, or explain it, or outreach customers, even if it costs me a sale that day. Does that make sense? Right? So, because once you have that word out there and things rolling and that momentum, and customers are coming in the showroom and they're telling people, wow, this Cali is cool. Wow, that, this place is really awesome to buy a car. Wow, Cavalli dealerships are really cool. And this process is super great. Modern retail, create my own deal, whatever it is. Then it's like, okay, I've done that. That has a momentum. And now I can go do this. Right. And then you constantly have to do both. Right. And even though that's very challenging, I like that kind of challenge. And that goes back to myself and my daughter, maybe my daughter, and certainly, being a super genius, being someone that's really, really intelligent. I like to have challenges. I like to be busy. I get bored if it's just one thing, or if I'm just limited or whatever. I don't like that, and that's part of why I've always liked to be an entrepreneur, because I don't know everything, but I'm pretty darn smart, and I certainly know me more better than anyone else, right? I know what's better for me, and I know what I can do. And often I'm going to see things way ahead of you. You have to recognize that, and that's the hardest thing, I think, in any business is if you're a leader or senior leaders, to understand that there's people at all levels of your organization that may know a lot of things better than you, or may have that critical piece, or may have that strategy, or may have that approach. And you have to, if you're going to get the most out of your organization, you have to be able to have those conversations. You have to be open to that. You have to be constantly thinking about that. You have to be able to develop your team and get the best out of your team. It comes back to people. It comes back to talent. There's so much to talk about. That's what this whole show is all about. So what am I going to do? I'm going to try to help the organization. We're going to try to just continue to do and spread the success. It's really everything I've been doing since May. That's why I listed the way I listed it on LinkedIn. It's just really a continuation of what I've been doing. Yes, it's an official promotion in my opinion. And we're going to try to do it and I'm taking on more, but I'm doing more, and it's going to be, and I think it's going to have more impact. But then I'm also looking to, like I said, I'm about to hopefully, I think we're going to launch something here so that we can do this. I can do a digital marketing agency and do it for other businesses and stuff as well. So we'll see. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day. I've got to balance it all out. But we're also looking to the whole Sarasota thing. But I want to talk about a couple things real quick. It's winding down here, and I got to get sleep. I got to get up early. And I'm going to try to figure out a way to weave this into political stuff. And I'll talk about it super quick without getting too political. But I mean, there's a big story out there, right? What's happening with this whole speaker situation? Well, let me cap the rest of that. In this environment where everything is changing, how do you get that lead? Where are your customers at? How do you have those conversations with them? How do you explain? How do you bring the showroom to them? I don't think I don't want to get too caught up in anything, I think the answers are complex, but I think the answers are also obvious. Where do we all go? Where are you looking at this right now? YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. What do we all look at? What do we all have? Phones. I mean, it's like, it's right there. It's right. We know what it is. So why aren't you going full blast on that instead of it's interesting. There's so much to do and so much that can be done. But again, it's people haven't done it. If I do this, if I spend this much money and it doesn't immediately get a result, what's my owner going to say? What's my GM going to say? What's my boss? What's my CEO going to say, etc.? What are my shareholders going to say? What's my board going to say? And at the same time, like some of this, you have to be able to take some risk and understand what the opportunity is. But you also understand that you're taking a risk if you don't do something, a massive risk. If the industry's going down, if the industry's changing, if you have different challenges, whether it's product, people, pricing, whatever the challenge is, if you don't do something different, if you don't figure out how to add value, if you don't have the communication, it's like, I wanted to do a lot of this stuff a lot earlier and a lot heavier. At the same time, like, we've had, we're doing a lot of stuff that's super cool. A lot of people are like, oh, that's amazing. And so, these other people aren't even doing it. So we're ahead of the game. So it's an interesting conversation. Now, there is some relationship, I think, to the political stuff. So that's that conversation. If you don't want to talk politics, listen to that and stop the video here. I'm gonna very, very briefly talk a little bit about the political stuff. It's just light. I haven't followed it super duper closely. It's interesting what's happening over there in Washington with the speaker votes, and I don't want to get too into it. I mean, I might do a show on that. Obviously, people know that I am a political expert, and if you follow me for a long time, and I've been very involved. I haven't been involved in it recently because I think everything's gotten super partisan and just a little too over the top, in my opinion. But obviously, it's very, very important. And I think people. We've seen the last many years how important policy and everything is, right, to people's lives. So, but I would say this, and this is how I would relate it to the other stuff. You have to be in touch with, sometimes there's that echo chamber, right? And, people talk about the swamp and insiders and this and that and all these types of things with DC. And I think that you have to think about what the fundamentals are, and you have to think about who the consumers are. And the consumers are the voters, right? The American people. And I think that, I think it's an interesting situation. I'm not saying anything in particular. I don't know. I'm not saying, but I think that it's good to have conversations. I don't even know exactly what I want to say about this, but I know what's in my head. I could lay this out for a much longer show, and I'm not going to do that. But I think that, why should it be just a ceremonial vote, right? What's wrong with having a little bit of a discussion, a little bit of a debate, hearing different voices, and making sure that, everybody's heard and people are representing their constituents and people don't want this. This is the thing. People don't want just the status quo. The game has changed. It's like in you look at what AOC on the Democrat side and I think that, and again, I'm not making any commentary whatsoever one way or the other. But what I am saying is that things change. The only thing constant is change, right? And you have to make sure that you're delivering value, to the customers. In this case, we're talking about constituents. A little bit, obviously, a little bit different. I don't know if those words are really, if that really syncs up right. If they're not so much interchangeable, but so I guess give me some latitude on that. I'm trying to. It's late here. I'm trying to sort of work through this. But yeah, I don't think like you look at some of this coverage. It's like, this is the worst thing ever. What's the big deal? Like historically, some of these things now it doesn't mean, of course, we're going to have some, at some point someone's got to be chosen here, and things need to move forward. But I think it's interesting. I don't have a strong opinion on it, other than like, I think it's okay to have conversations. I think it's okay to think about things. I think it's always good to make sure that you're representing your constituents, and we'll see. But I think it's another. It may be analogous in terms of it's another sign that like things are changing. It's not the same old thing. Again, the only thing constant is change. So what is important now? What do people want? What do people expect out of the leadership in Congress? What did the midterms mean? What do people want out of a Republican? What kind of party is a Republican Party now? What do people want out of a Republican Congress? These are all interesting questions, right? What's the way forward? How is 2023 going to be different than 2022? I think it's going to be pretty different. I talked about that in a show before, and I think we're going to all find out. So anyway, so much to talk about, so many interesting things going on, and an interesting time in my life. And I think there's a huge opportunity, and we'll see. But I think we're all working in a challenging market right now. But I'm always an optimist, and I think that there's always ways to do interesting things and win and do better. And that's what excites me. I love it. I love the game of business and creating and entrepreneurship and all that type of stuff. And that's always fun. And you're seeing a lot of these worlds sort of collide, and between tech and venture and automotive and everything. And I think that a lot of I think there's much more where there's also maybe an analogy. I think there's much more transparency when it comes to media and communications and politics, right? And so what people expect and how they react to that, that's different, right? So yeah. Anyway, okay. I think that's a pretty good night. Hopefully we covered a lot. Like I said, so much to talk about. We got to a lot of it. Couldn't get to all of it. But I appreciate you. I'll try to follow up with any comments that I see on LinkedIn and Facebook. And then I think tomorrow morning, we're going to have Gino Walsh on the show. And that's going to be, I'm sure that's going to be interesting. I'm sure that's going to be fun. Looking forward to what he has to say. He's a brilliant mind and very accomplished. And it's always great to have him on the show. So anyway, we'll see about that. And looking forward to seeing you later. So if you like this video, please rate it up. Please post it on social media websites as well. And please turn on the notification buttons and subscribe and turn on the notification buttons. And I hope you have a wonderful night. And I will see you probably sometime tomorrow morning. Thanks so much. Be well. I'm John D. Villarreal. I'll see you next time. And I'll say goodbye for Janera as well. Thanks.